Hello, I'm Dennis Gunn, the director of the Hearing Aid Academy. Every dispenser in the hearing aid industry has their way of telling the patient about their hearing loss and what they need to know to be a successful hearing aid user. After 40 years of fitting hearing aids, I found the newborn baby story to be the best way that I've ever heard of getting the patient and the spouse to understand that the patient's hearing loss belongs to them and that they must shoulder the responsibility of the handicap for the remainder of their life. When you present the newborn baby story and you see the light go off and the patient and the spouse understand instantly what this lesson teaches, you will see miracles happen. This is why I'm giving this precious tool to you to use and adapt it to your personality. The stronger you can make the message, the better it will work. Let's begin. I assume your receptionist should have made the appointment with the spouse, promising to be there with the patient or a third party. If your telephone person cannot get a spouse or third party to be at the appointment, then fire them and replace them with someone who can. The receptionist who answers the phone and makes appointments is the most important person in the office. Appointments with spouse or third party are 70% more likely to purchase than patients with the spouse or third party not there. I am assuming that you have read the forms that were filled out by the spouse and the patient. Any questions that were not answered should be asked and recorded by you. I am also assuming that you have looked over into the patient's ears with your video otoscope and removed any impacted wax if it's allowed in your state. In some states where it is not allowed, you should have a nurse under a doctor's supervision who you know and respect for knowing how to remove impacted wax that you can refer to anytime and get your patient back in a short period of time. You should have visited with a patient and the spouse or third party and they are comfortable with you. Remember the overview of the information and the video otoscope exam that everything is serious. No joking or light jokes until the patient is fitted and can hear what you're saying, or they may think you're talking about them and get mad or mistrust you. After the hearing exam and demonstrator hearing aids are programmed and fitted to the patient. During this time, you do not talk to the spouse or patient, and just do what you need to do to get the audiogram into NOAA and the instruments programmed and hung on the ears of the patient as fast as possible. When this is finished and you are satisfied that everything is okay, ask the spouse or third party to talk to the patient and tell the patient that you love them, since they have not heard this in a long time. Then smile and show both the spouse and the patient that you're kidding. Then ask the patient, "Do you hear me now?" You want to get the patient to admit that there is a wow effect, or that they are hearing clearly now. Or if they say they can't hear any difference, turn the volume up 3 times on both instruments, and then ask, "Is that better or is it too loud?" They usually say it's too loud, so you turn them down a notch to best fit and ask them if this is better. Go back and forth until you get the patient to admit that they are hearing much better or that it is clear. You must clearly get a positive result at this time with the spouse agreeing that it's better. Then you go to the spouse or the third party and ask them to ask the patient a question without speaking loud, and you ask the patient to not look at the third party so you do not get their facial expressions. You can turn the patient around where they're not facing the spouse or third party. You must get a positive attitude from what they are hearing before proceeding. Then tell both of them that now that we have the patient hearing, I would like to tell you a story that is true. Sit in front of the chair like I'm sitting in the front, not leaning back. You do not want to have a relaxed posture at this point. You will not get the effect of the story if you are relaxed. Take the audiogram and draw a line at -20 and explain that this is where normal newborn children hear. Then show a line at 0 dB and explain that this is where normal American hearing is found by the ANSI standard for audiometric 0. Then tell them we have parents bring 7 and 8-year-old children who have failed the school screening exam and don't seem to hear like they did at earlier ages. They think the child quit listening, and that is why they do not respond when the parent is talking to them, or the iPod is on and that is all they hear. When you run the hearing exam, it's normal. You can then explain to the parent that the child has now come to normal hearing, which is 0, where they had -20 hearing before birth, and that is why they do not hear like they used to. Tell them that most newborn children can hear someone talking a block away with a soft voice. Their hearing is so good that they actually cry when a sibling screams because it hurts their perfect hearing. The child can hear you whisper 6 weeks before they're born because their cochlea is fully developed at 6 weeks before their birth. The child remembers the mother and father talking to them before they are born and become quiet when they hear a familiar voice that they heard before they were born. Now you can see how good the child hears, but have you noticed that most children cannot talk for 9 months when they begin saying mama, dada? I've asked mothers how old their child is and what is their vocabulary for many years, and they usually say only a few words. Why is this? It is because the brain has to be programmed to know what sounds they hear and what they mean. They progress into the 2nd year and in general add a few more words and start putting sentences together. Now this is with perfect hearing. It takes time for the brain to understand and for the child to start talking. So we hear with the brain. The ear is just a device that converts mechanical energy to electrical energy and sends it to the brain for translating. During the 3rd year, the child talks all the time and is fully involved in communicating with the family. They hear so well and enjoy listening to themselves that you actually want them to shut up. Now your hearing has come to this point, showing them the audiogram, and you ask the patient, do you think you can learn to hear again as fast as a newborn child? No, I don't think you can. It will probably take you at least as long to hear with your deteriorated hearing as a newborn child, and I doubt if you can learn to hear as fast as a newborn child. It usually takes 3 hours to begin hearing better with the new hearing aids that we just put on you, as the brain is beginning to hear and know little things that you have been missing. However, you're hearing better now, aren't you? Are the hearing aids too loud, too soft, or just right? Just checking. In the next week, talking to the patient, you need to write down daily what you're experiencing and come in next week for a visit where we can talk about your experiences. We will make minor adjustments or send you home for another week of learning to hear again. After the first 3 weekly visits are completed, and then go to 1 visit a month, your hearing will continue to improve as your brain remembers those sounds that you have not heard for years, especially the P's, T's, S's, TH, and SH. Those are silent, and they're consonants, and cannot be heard without amplification with your high-frequency hearing loss. The time needed is dependent on your hearing loss, but you may never hear as well as a newborn baby with -20 hearing. Now I want you to remember this, because I'm going to ask you, do you remember the newborn baby story the next time you come in for an adjustment? If you say you don't remember the newborn baby story, I will have to tell it to you again because you must remember that it takes time and patience and working with us to get the very best results from the use of your new hearing instruments. Now, this can be the end of your presentation, and you can go into the fitting of the hearing aid and how they put it on and all other things that you want to do as you're selling them. It's all depending on how convincing you were in the presentation. The newborn baby story usually does not help a patient who has been wearing hearing aids for many years, as they've heard many different dispensers tell the story that they thought was good, and they are skeptical of any new ideas. Now, what does the newborn baby story do for you as a dispenser? Number one, it teaches the patient the process that one goes through in learning to hear consonants again. Number two, it teaches the patient and the spouse or third party that this is a long-term learning experience, and they need you and your service and expertise to be successful. It explains, number three, it explains that you, their specialist, are going to get rid of unwanted sounds because listening to you tell of your experiences, that you will fix any problem that may arise from your many fittings and professional knowledge. Number four, it makes a solid patient who believes in you and wants to remain in your care for many years to come. And number five, by beginning with the newborn baby story, you become the teacher, not the salesman, and that is what you want to be, the hearing instrument specialist who helps your patient deal with their physical handicap. I pray that you may be able to use this in your personality and do it well, where your patients will live with you for the rest of their life. This is Dennis Gunn with the Hearing Aid Academy.